All right, traders. So this is going to be the wide state. I just finished the trend state video. So this is going to be the wide state. If we go back to our PowerPoint, this is the third of three states that the market is in. We go from narrow through the trend into the wide state. And so that is, let's see if I've got some little deal here. So the wide state is a big air gap separation. The 20 and the 200 are fully separated. The market movement exhausts, completes its run. Energy is dissipated onto the beach. So let's look at that in our coastline analogy. And, you know, we went through the wide state here, and where it dissipates, we went through the trend state here, and where it dissipates, it's going to start kind of going flat and almost becoming parallel again. And that's going to be the wide state. So let's just back this off here. And we've got our analogy, our coastline analogy. And let's get rid of the 50. That's kind of noisy right now. Let's get rid of these. Let's put the wide state where it belongs, up here. And let's look at, I have a drawing thing somewhere. I can't remember where I lost all my drawing tools. I have got to find those drawing tools. All right, so this is wide. And you can see the market, the trending angle, stops angling here. Let's get rid of the market for a second. You see how the trending angle kind of stopped angling? That's your wide arc. Your arc kind of arced over. That's your wide state. And oftentimes, let's see if the market went out here. Well, the market didn't quite move out, and that's kind of a signal here that it's got more room to run. At some point, the market is going to have this air gap in here, and that's what we call wide to wider. You have a double, or I'm sorry, I call that double wide. So you have wide state. So this is a wide state. This is, wide state. As the market moves off the 20 in a wide state, you have wide and wide. That's what I call double wide. Now we don't trade. Let's focus in on this one. We don't trade wide to wider. We do not. Do not trade wide to wider. So this, we don't keep trading when we're wide. We trade next to the 20 or near the 20. We don't trade away from the 20 wider, especially when it's gone flat here. Now it's gone flat because, you've broken down here the market, the average of the last 20 candles is now being made flat because we've pulled back, right? So obviously you're going to see that, but this is the wide state. So when we're in this wide state, let's just type this in here. When we're in the wide state, we want to make some trading decisions. It is possible to trade from the wide state back to narrow. Now let's look at what narrow looks like in this case. Here is the 20 and the 200 in a relatively parallel state. Are they together? No, they're not together, but they are parallel. This is not trending. I mean, it's a little bit here, but not much. It's not trending like you'd think. It's fairly parallel, all things considered. Now, I'm not saying that this is not a tradable because they both are moving up. That's a strong, you got the 200 rising, you got the 20 is rising. But I just want to show you that when we're talking about going from wide back to narrow, this narrowness is sometimes going to be separated by some distance. So you can see that this trend came down and ended. It did not continue all the way back down. Let me use this arrow here. It did not come all the way back down to the 200. So you have to be careful. They won't always come back. In this case, wide back to narrow was this right here. So let's look at the market and what really looked like. So we had wide back to narrow. Narrow not being very narrow. And it ended, and it, obviously took off in another direction. But the idea here being we trade from wide to narrow, or we trade narrow to wide. The transition zone in between is the trend state, and we want to identify these wide states on both sides right now. So let's just go ahead and do that. Let's get rid of the market. We're on ExxonMobil, and let's break it down. Let's look at the daily chart. Let's see if we can find any narrows and wides on the daily chart. Again, if I want to hit my A button, it will bring the market back into, you can see the highs and lows. Okay. Now, where's my wides and where's my narrows? Well, this looks fairly narrow. They're coming together. It's got a bit of an angle, but it's a bit parallel. That would be narrow state. So if that's narrow, where's wide? This is wide. We have gone through the transition zone of trend state where you have an angle. You see that angle? Your angle is compared to the 200. So now let's hide this and hide this. And you see the angle is almost 45 degrees comparatively. So there's your trend. And as your trend pulls away from the 200, what do we end up with? Well, this is very wide. Let's bring the, I'm going to probably use these again. So let's push that over there. Now let's bring the market in and see what happened. So the market went very wide. So this is double wide. This is an air gap here. We're already wide here, and we're pulling away from the 20 while we're already wide. So the angle, the true angle, let's see if I can bring where's my little gig unit here? Well, I don't know where my arrow went. So our true angle is here. Where did it start to flatten out? It's kind of started to flatten out a little bit here. I'm starting to get a little concerned. And I am very wide here. So I'm very wide here, or I am wide here comparatively. Now, all things being equal, this was narrow here. It went through the 45-degree angle phase of the trend state, and now I am wide. And I am even wider here. So when you see this, I mean, we're going bar to bar here because this thing's going to end. This thing is not going to continue to go forever out away from the 20. Remember, the 20 is an average. So even if this took off, the 20 would pull up with it, but this pulling away from the 20 rapidly. So it is a spike of volatility that is going to get corrected. So in this case, the you're in a double wide state right here. And we don't trade wide to wider. We only take a trade when it comes back to the 20. And in this case, we are at a wide state, and we're going to take trades all the way up this angled move here. But as it got wider and wider and wider, and we clearly have a 1, 2, 3, we can expect a 3-wave move. Now, I say that very carefully because you can see in this move, This move did not have really a three wave. I mean, you could maybe say that that was your second, your subdivision. You could kind of 1, 2, 3 here, but generally you're going to have this strong push up. You're going to have a bit of a pullback, and you're going to have a follow through. Generally, now there's an example in a previous lesson I just did where we had a strong push up, and then all of this sideways move came all the way back here. And the market really was doing this. It was doing an A and a B and a C. So you never quite know what you're going to get. But you should be able to generally expect that you're going to get a pullback. And when the pullback comes into the 20, without having a real pullback here, so this is a very strong move, pull back into the 20. Hopefully you can get your entry, and you can get this follow-on move. And when you have 3 moves, this is 1, 2, and 3, you are wide and you are double wide. You better be going bar by bar here because this thing's going to end. You're going to capture that and you're out. And you've got your reversal here. Let's draw our trend line across the bottom here. This move here is going faster than this move, and you are out. You're done. That's the beach. You're done. And you have reached the pinnacle of this strong trend. This strong trend is now wide. It goes over the arc. It is now trending down. This is our wide state. So I just want to get your eye kind of accustomed to understanding the difference between trend and wide. And it's going to be a little bit of a I don't want to call it art, but as you're going up this trend state, you're not going to necessarily see this arc because it hasn't happened yet. If I put on my replay here, put it right there, we haven't, where's my wide state? Well, you are in a wide state. It's just a thing. You are in a wide state. You have this here, you have this here, and you are in a wide state. You don't have to question that. That is wide. If this move here was kind of running parallel and it didn't have this angle, then you might be able to ride this a lot longer, but that's not what we've got here. We've got essentially this triangle effect going on here. And this is setting up your wideness. You should be expecting something to happen up here. This is your money maker right there. Well, that money maker is not going to last forever. And we're just kind of learning when it starts to get wide, when this separation is pushing out here, that is your wide state. You get your trend angle against your 200, and this is your wide. All right, we've kind of talked about that. Let's look at a couple more examples. I got a whole bunch of markets up here. Let's look at Tesla. We haven't looked at Tesla in a long time. So let's look at Tesla on, let's see, what chart should we use? How about the 15-minute chart? We haven't looked at that. We haven't looked at Tesla, and we haven't looked at the 15-minute chart in quite a while. Let's get rid of the market. Let's look at only the trend state. There are a lot of these markets I had not ever set up on the thicker deals. So as I come across them, I like to make them a little thicker. It's easier for you to see them in the video. So that's what I'm doing right here. Just making the markets a little thicker here, or the trend, the moving averages. Okay. So we are in the 15-minute chart on Tesla. Clearly, we've got some wide states here. Where's some more? Here's a big one. This is kind of wide down here. It's in a smaller degree, but it did push away. Here's one. You see how the trend is ending when it's wide and it's turning? And let me just show you this one. So if we traded, this is a cross. This isn't necessarily narrow unless we really zoom in, then you get your narrow. There's your narrow, right? Your narrow state. But if we look at moving from narrow to wide, look at how big this run is and how small this run is. So when we trade wide to narrow, we may get a little bit less of a run. It did actually cross and come all the way down here. So it's a wide to narrow is possible, but boy, your moneymaker is going to be narrow to wide, and you can just get good at that before you start trying to get fancy and trade from the beach down back to the deep water. So just kind of, keeping an eye on that as we're talking about the wide state. Yes, you can trade wide back to narrow, but I think the moneymaker is really in learning how to trade narrow to wide. Let's look at a few more. This market doesn't like to stay narrow very much. It's really moving along here. So here you had a narrow. Boy, wouldn't you like to get in on that right there? It goes to wide. You're going to get out. It comes back. Test the 200, comes down. You've got another move to wide, comes back. Another move to wide, comes back. You're starting to get the picture here. And these are wide, wide, wide. You see the angle? Angles creating these triangles. Now, these are of smaller degree. I haven't talked about degree yet. I just did a video on degree, so it's in my head. But I pushed that module out. I had it earlier in the course, but it really didn't. It was too much early in the course, so I've pushed it out to later in the course. So if you want to jump ahead and just watch the video on degree or some of those other chart structure videos, you'll understand what I'm talking about. This is a smaller degree. We'll call it small, medium, and large. This would be called small. And look at how big this one is. This one's large, right? So you have trends on small, medium, and large degree, but they still follow the same structure of, narrow to wide. So this is Tesla on a 15-minute chart. I could do this all day long on any chart. You pick a chart. What do you want to do? Let's do, let's do Solana. Solana is a crypto. Well, I guess we're not doing Solana. Oh, there we go. Solana came back. Now let's do Solana on the hourly. That's what I've got set up here. Solana on the hourly chart. And let's make this a little easier to see. Eventually I'll get through all of these and fix all of these. Okay, Solana on the hourly chart. Let's get rid of our market. Oh, doesn't that look nice? Look at this one. We're narrow. Bam. Just takes off. But look at how wide this would be considered wide, all things considered. On a smaller degree, this is wide, and we might be tempted to get out here. We might even got forced out here. But then we could get back in, and now it's really wide, and it brings us back in a very strong move all the way back, crosses, tests, comes back down. So you can see comes back surfing the 200 down now. So let's look at the market. Let's just for fun, let's see if we had a power move out of this market here. Anything that we could potentially see here. So we were wide, kind of back and forth, and then it had started to rise. Let's look at our replay so we don't try to cheat here. It's starting to come up out of the narrow state, but we've got a gap. If we can break that top of that gap, we might have an entry there. There's our entry right there. We said that we have a candle. We lose a candle to gain many candles, right? So let's just take a trade here and let's see what happens. There's our entry was here. And our trade, our candle was here. On these gaps, you can bring your candle down to the 20 because the actual market ended right here in the previous candle. So it's a little bit of a art form whether you want to do that. I tend to want to do at the most like 61% of this entire move here. I don't want the market coming back more than 61% because that's a Fibonacci number. If it does, this trend is a fake out. So let's just set it there and see what happens. Let's advance the market now. Let's see what happens. We're still in, we're still in, we're still in. So we got in on a nice move here off a narrow state, and it's going to wide, going to wide, going to wide. Look at how wide that is right now. Oh, I better take it out of replay because I'm starting to lose what I'm doing here. Oh, I think I just, here, I think I somehow created the market into a different, let me see how I get out of this. Move pane. I want to maximize pane. Okay. So I think I'm going to have to work on this because it just threw me into two different panes. It got rid of my indicators, and I'm gonna have to get out of this market because it just threw me off onto panes. I forget how to close that pane out. Let's see. Where's my pane here? Well, let's just get rid of this one. Let's just move on. I don't want to dog you with that. But you saw that oh, here we go. Here's the market. At least we can just see this. This is where we got in. The market went sideways here and then kept going. So this was wide and wider. And unfortunately, I don't have my indicators right there. And I think I will be safe if I go over. Let's look at Amazon. Yeah, Amazon's. So you can see that as you go from symbol to symbol, it will give you what you have. Like the symbol I was just looking at, which I believe was Solana. I'm in a weird pane. It threw me into a weird pane where I'm not able to see my indicators. It's kind of separated my indicators and my market. And so I've got to go back and fix that. But you'll notice that when I went over here to Amazon, because I set this symbol up here, this symbol carries everything that I want. It carries all my folders. It carries my information. And so symbol by symbol, you're going to have you're going to have your information. Now, if I was to go over here to Solana, just to keep everything the same, and this was where I got weirded out here. If I was to go choose another symbol in this window, it would continue to give me this weird pane where it separated my indicators and all that. But the fact that I have set up a different workspace, a different layout, rather, I have a different layout for Amazon. When I go to Amazon, I am in a completely different layout, and this symbol carries everything I want. So I'm no longer in that problem I just created in Solana. Just a little lesson on the fact that layouts will save you if you end up in a problem. And so I've got tons and tons of layouts of every symbol that I use and have in my watch list are all set up as layouts. So I can quickly move them back and forth. And in the case of Solana, I clicked on something. I'll have to look at what I did, but it threw me off there. All right, let's do another one. And here's one to the downside. We've been doing a ton of bull market stuff. Let's do this one. Here we have a 200 period moving average. This is Amazon on the 1 minute chart. And then I think we'll close out this lesson on a wide state. Here we have Amazon on the 1 minute chart. We're going, this would be considered a wide state on a very small degree. But in general, if you kind of look back here, it is going narrowish back and forth, but generally coming together and going narrow. And then we have a really big breakout here. What is our entry signal? Well, we're on the correct side of things. The 20 is down below the 200. We had a little green move up, which is the wrong direction in this location. And boom, red takes out green, and we're in the market. We're in the market here from a narrow state. We're in the market, and we get in early. Boom, 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 boom. Look how direct and straight this is. There is no subdivided three wave here. So I am already expecting a pullback and a follow on. Maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe this pullback ends up pulling back to here and it does this. So this big move is, A, B, C, and I never really get my follow on move. But I'm really expecting that this will pull back to the 20 and give me a follow-on move, which ultimately it looks like it did. So where's my subdivision? My subdivision is here, here, and here. You see how it kind of tends towards equality? So it sort of kind of looks even now, where we're not dealing with a huge move down and then some sort of little dribble move here. We're talking about boom, boom, boom. That's what, when I talk about degree, I'm talking about, this is a degree and this is of the same degree. And this is, so all these little wiggles are smaller and smaller degrees, but we're talking about degree. This is what I would call a large degree, large. And then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. All right. But we're still in the wide state video. We're still talking about wide state. We have moved away from the 20 in an angle. And that's the thing I really want you to see in this. Let's hide the market. Where's the market at? Let's hide the market. Let's hide the 20 and the 200. And as you see this separation, this is your trend state. As you see the separation, now we've got to be expecting that this market is going to find a bottom at some point here. We're going to learn how to do that. We're going to learn how to gauge whether or not this is the bottom. We're going to keep going. None of this is absolute rocket science. There is a little bit of art and science to this. And we may have to get in. There's going to be some re-entries. We may have to get in. But we're looking for whether or not we are in a wide state. Clearly here we are wide. We're trending, but then we went flat right here. So we are wide, but it gave us another entry and we went wide again. And then it gave us another entry and we went wide again. And then this is truly the beach where it flat, and bam. It went from narrow, nice big entry here. And I mean, this isn't the largest of entries, but it's bigger than all these other little waves. And then it reasserted itself here on this little color change. That if you didn't get in on this one, you certainly could have gotten in on this one. This is already well in play. Look how strong that trend is compared to this. There's your entry right there if you didn't get in on this one. This is the 1 minute chart on Amazon. But just showing you, you're going to go wide. Maybe you catch all of these other two trends here, trend. Maybe you catch these, maybe you don't. Goes narrow, boom, back again. You can just do this all day long. And this happens on any time frame. So now we're angle, trend state. Now we're going sideways, and now we're wide again. So there's your wide state going back to narrow. There you're back to narrow again. Boom, back to wide. All day long, narrow to wide to narrow to wide to narrow to wide. So the market is going from compression to expansion, back to compression. This is all just spikes of volatility. But this is what we're trading, these 20 and 200, how they compare to each other. That's what we'll be trend surfing. All right, so that's the wide state video. And I want you to go do this on your own. Go through, use your 20 and your 200 period moving average, go through and find some wide states, get your arrow button out here and start saying, okay, is that wide? Draw in some coastline. Get your little text key in here and say, okay, Rich said that was the deep water. So start replicating what I'm doing. Don't just watch the videos. Start replicating and say, hey, can you do this? Can you find the wave? Can you find the beach? Can you find the deep water? Can you see where it's now separating and it's going flat? Can you see where the lineup was, where the surfers were sitting? How many of these have I done in the last 2 or 3 videos? I'm just finding these. I don't plan this at all. This is just how the market works. So this is what we call the lineup. This is where the surfers sit. And we're looking for a power move out of the lineup, right? So do a few of these. Find a market, pick a time frame, look for these, and just start understanding what's happening here. You're moving from narrow through the trend state into wide. We're going to get out of the wave, and we're going to try to learn how to surf this and make some money. We're going to risk a candle to make many candles, and that's what we're going to do. So try a few of these on your own. Go a few, maybe do 5 bulls and 5 bears, and try to see if you can pull this off. And rewatch the videos a few times and start to see what wide and narrow looks like on different degrees. Some of these are going to be small degrees. Some of these, like, look at this one. This one's a small degree. This one's a larger degree. And then we're just going to, or then after you do that a few times, go back and watch the next video. I think the next module is going to be the 4-step process. Now, we've gone over this over and over and over again, but we're going to now break it down into the 4-step process. And you're going to learn the 4 steps, and then after the 4-step process, we're going to break down in well, actually, I think during the 4-step process, I go into the details. We're going to go into the details on each step of how to enter these waves, how to surf them, how to exit. We're going to go into some pretty good detail on those, and then some follow-on modules. We'll just be doing example after example of surfing these and start to get a little more granular. And then we're going to also do some a module on risk and how, how much should you be trading, and what is your risk, and how to set all that up, and not just how to trade the market, but also what size limits and things like that, risk, max risk per trade, max risk per day, things like that. So we're going to get into all of that. Okay, are you excited? I am. Let's make some money. Let's learn how to do this, and let's keep going. So the next module, I think, is going to be this 4-step process. I'll see you there. Take care, everybody.